I walk into the courtroom, and the first thing I smell isn't justice. It's desperation mixed with cheap cologne. Bird announces the case, but I've already read the pleadings. I know exactly what I'm looking at before I even take my seat. On my left, we have Mrs. Eleanor Gable, a 74-year-old grandmother who looks like she knits sweaters for stray kittens. On my right, we have Mr. Marcus Thorne, a 26-year-old with a suit that fits him like he borrowed it from a larger, more honest cousin. Mrs. Gable is suing Mr. Thorne for $5,000, the statutory limit in this jurisdiction, claiming it was a loan for a business venture. Mr. Thorne claims it was a gift. A gift. I've heard that one more times than I've had hot meals. I sit down, adjust my lace collar, and look at Mrs. Gable. She's shaking. Not the kind of shaking you do when you're cold, but the kind of shaking you do when you've been betrayed by someone you thought you could trust. I tell her to take a breath. I don't like people shaking in my courtroom unless they're the ones who stole something. I turn my eyes to Thorne. He's leaning on his elbows. I hate that. Sir, stand up straight, I snap. This isn't a bar. This is a court of law. Put your hands at your sides and stop looking at the ceiling. The answers aren't written on the tiles. They're in your head, assuming you can find them. He straightens up, but his eyes are darting. That's the first sign. People who tell the truth have a very easy time looking you in the eye. People who are crafting a narrative, which is a fancy word for lying, tend to look everywhere but at the person asking the questions. Mrs. Gable, I say, my voice softening, just a fraction, but only a fraction. Tell me how you met this charming young man. She tells me they met at her church. He volunteered for the youth program. He was helpful. He carried her groceries. He fixed her leaky faucet. He groomed himself into her life until he became a fixture. Then, 6 months ago, he came to her with a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He wanted to start a mobile detailing business. He needed $5,000 for equipment and a down payment on a van. He promised she'd be a silent partner and get her money back in 90 days with interest. Did you put this in writing, Mrs. Gable, I ask? I already know the answer. No, Judge, she whispers. I trusted him. He was like a grandson to me. A grandson, I repeat, looking over at Thorne. He's got this smirk on his face. It's a small smirk, the kind of smirk a guy has when he thinks he's the smartest person in the room. I love that smirk. It gives me something to break. Mr. Thorne, she says it was a loan. You say it was a gift. Why on earth would this woman, who lives on a fixed income, I see your Social Security statement here, Mrs. Gable, give you a grown man with 2 working arms and 2 working legs, $5,000 out of the goodness of her heart? Thorne clears his throat. Your Honor, she saw how hard I was working. She told me she wanted to help me get ahead. She said, Marcus, you're such a good boy. I want you to have this. There was never any talk of a loan. I didn't even ask for it, she insisted. She insisted, I leaned forward, she insisted on emptying a significant portion of her savings to give to a man she's known for less than a year. Is that what you're telling me? Yes, ma'am, he says, nodding vigorously. Don't ma'am me. I'm Judge or Your Honor. Ma'am is what you call the lady who sells you apples. I look at the bank records Mrs. Gable provided. A withdrawal of $5,000 in cash. Why cash, Mrs. Gable? He said it would be faster to buy the equipment from a private seller, she says. I look back at Thorne. Where's the equipment, Mr. Thorne? Where's the van? Where's the mobile detailing business? He stammers for a second. The deal fell through. The seller disappeared with the money. It was a scam. I felt so bad about it, I didn't want to tell her. You felt so bad about it that you just kept the gift and let her sit at home wondering where her $5,000 went, I shake my head. Bird, give me the defendant's phone records and his bank statement from that month. He submitted them as part of his defense to show he didn't have the money to pay her back. I start flipping through the pages. I'm fast. I don't need an hour to read a bank statement. I'm looking for a specific number. $5,000 doesn't just evaporate. If he was scammed, there would be a police report. If he spent it, there would be a trail. I see a deposit here, Mr. Thorne, I say, my voice getting lower. That's when people should get worried. When I get quiet, the storm is coming. 3 days after Mrs. Gable withdrew the cash, you deposited $4,800 into your checking account. I thought you said you gave the cash to a private seller who scammed you. He blinks. His smirk is gone. I did, but he gave some of it back when I threatened to call the cops. Oh, so you got the money back? Some of it, he says, sweating now. Then why didn't you give that some of it back to the woman who gifted it to you when you knew the business was dead? I needed it for rent. I was going through a hard time. So it went from a business investment to a gift to a rent payment, I say, counting on my fingers. You're changing your story faster than a windshield wiper in a hurricane. Look at me, Mr. Thorne. If you tell the truth, you don't have to have a good memory. But when you lie, you have to remember everything you said before, and you're failing miserably. I flip to the next page of his bank statement. I see a series of charges: a luxury hotel in Las Vegas, a charge for a high-limit lounge, a $300 dinner at a steakhouse. This was 1 week after he got the money from this poor woman. You went to Las Vegas, Mr. Thorne. I state. It's not a question. It was a pre-planned trip, he says, his voice cracking. With what money? You just told me you were so broke you had to use her gift to pay your rent. I slam the folder shut. The sound echoes in the room. Mrs. Gable is crying now, silently, into a tissue. Thorne is looking at his shoes. You took this woman's money, you didn't buy a van, you didn't start a business, and you went to Vegas to play big shot. And now you're standing in my courtroom, under oath, telling me that this woman, who can barely afford her medication, decided to fund your weekend at the craps table? It wasn't like that, he mutters. Then tell me what it was like, because right now, it looks like you're a predator who found an easy target in a church pews. Do you have any evidence, any text, any email, any witness who can corroborate that she intended this to be a gift? She said it to me privately, he says. Baloney, I yell. Bird, look at this man. Is he a gift kind of guy? He's a take kind of guy. I've seen your type since I was a prosecutor in 1972. You think you can talk your way out of anything because you've got a nice smile and you know how to pray in public. But God isn't presiding today. I reach for a document Mrs. Gable handed me earlier. It's a printout of a text message exchange. I hadn't brought it up yet. I like to let them dig the hole first. I want to see how deep they'll go before I throw the dirt in. Mr. Thorne, I have a text message here from your phone number to Mrs. Gable's phone, dated 14 days after you took the money. Do you want to know what it says, or should I surprise you? His face goes pale. Truly pale. Not just I'm nervous pale, but I'm about to be sick pale. He knows what's on that phone. He thought she was too old to know how to print out texts. He thought she was too sweet to use his own words against him. He was wrong. It says, I begin reading slowly for maximum effect. Hey, Eleanor, the van is looking great. I'll have the first repayment check to you by the 1st of the month. Thanks for believing in me. Does that sound like a gift to you, Mr. Thorne? The silence in the room is heavy. You could hear a pin drop on the carpet. Thorne's mouth opens and shuts like a fish out of water. The lie is trapped in his throat. He's caught, and he knows it, but he's not ready to break just yet. He's still trying to find a way out. He's still trying to think of a new lie to cover the old one. He doesn't realize that I'm just getting started. I have 9 more pages of records, and I haven't even asked him about the business license he claimed to have filed for. I'm waiting, Mr. Thorne, I say, leaning back and crossing my arms. And don't tell me your phone was hacked. If I hear hacked, you're going to see me lose my temper, and you don't want to see that. Why did you use the word repayment if there was nothing to repay? He starts to mumble something about incorrect terminology. Incorrect terminology? Repayment. It's a very simple word. It means you give back what you took. It's the opposite of gift. Do you have a dictionary at home, or did you sell that for Vegas chips too? I can see the sweat beads forming on his forehead. He looks at Mrs. Gable, hoping for a moment of her famous mercy. She doesn't look back. She's looking at me. her eyes filled with the painful realization that the boy she treated like a grandson was nothing more than a thief in a cheap suit. We're going to take a very short moment while I look through these Vegas receipts again. I say, my eyes locked on him, and when I look back up, you'd better have a better answer than incorrect terminology. Because right now, I'm not just thinking about a civil judgment. I'm thinking about the fact that you defrauded a senior citizen. And that, Mr. Thorne, is a very different kind of conversation. I don't look at the receipts for long. I don't have to. I've seen enough greed in my lifetime to recognize it on a thermal paper printout. I see a charge for a nightclub called the Alibi. How fitting. $150 for bottle service. You're telling me you can't pay back a 74-year-old woman who trusts you, but you can buy a bottle of overpriced vodka that probably costs $12 to make? It's disgusting. It's more than disgusting. It's a character flaw. I look up. Thorne is shifting his weight from one foot to the other. Mr. Thorne, what is the Alibi? It's a lounge, Your Honor. My friends took me there for my birthday. Oh, your friends took you? Then why is the charge on your debit card? Did your friends steal your card, go to the lounge, and force you to drink the vodka? Because that would be a crime, and we should call the police right now. No, I paid for the first round. I was trying to be a good guy. You were trying to be a good guy with Eleanor Gable's rent money, I scream. I don't usually scream this early, but this kid is pushing all my buttons. You're a good guy to your drinking buddies with a pensioner's savings, but you're a ghost when it's time to pay her back. That makes you a thief, Mr. Thorne. A common, low-level thief with delusions of grandeur. I turn to Mrs. Gable. She's staring at him, and her face has shifted from hurt to a cold, hard clarity. Good. She needs to see him for what he is. She needs to stop seeing the nice boy from church and start seeing the predator in the cheap suit. Mrs. Gable, did he ever mention a trip to Las Vegas to you? Never, she says, her voice firmer now. He told me he was going to a business seminar in Arizona. He said it was for people starting new companies. He asked me for another $200 for the bus ticket. I gave it to him. I feel my blood pressure spike. I look at Thorne. You took another $200 for a bus ticket? Bird, look at this. He didn't take a bus. I have a charge here for Spirit Airlines, $89. He pocketed the rest and flew to Vegas to play big shot. Thorne starts to speak, but I put my hand up. Shut up. Every time you open your mouth, a lie falls out. I don't want to hear about the bus. I don't want to hear about the business seminar. I want to talk about the scam. You told me earlier that a private seller scammed you out of the money for the equipment. Give me the name of this seller. Thorne looks down at the podium. I don't remember his full name. I found him on Craigslist. His name was Mike. Mike, I repeat, just Mike. No last name, no business name, no address where you went to see this mythical van and this legendary equipment. We met in a parking lot, he mutters. Of course you did. You met Mike in a parking lot, handed him $5,000 in cash that didn't belong to you, and he just drove away? And you didn't take down his license plate? You didn't get a receipt? You didn't call the police when he disappeared? I was embarrassed, Thorne says. You weren't embarrassed. You were busy at the craps table. I slammed my hand down on the bench. Bird, does he have a police report in that file? Anything at all? Bird shakes his head. Nothing, Judge. Just his own statement. Because it didn't happen. I lean over the bench looking directly into Thorne's eyes. I want him to feel the weight of his own stupidity. There is no Mike. There is no van. There was never a business. You saw a lonely woman with a kind heart and a little bit of money, and you decided to harvest her. You're a farmhand, Mr. Thorne, and Mrs. Gable was your crop. But you forgot one thing. I'm the one who decides when the harvest is over. I look at the bank statements again. I see a withdrawal here from an ATM at the Bellagio. $400, then another $300 2 hours later, then $500 the next morning. You were chasing your losses, weren't you? You lost your money at the tables, and you thought you could win it back before she noticed, but you didn't win. You never win. People like you always lose because you're playing with stolen time and stolen money. Thorne's facade is starting to crack. The corners of his mouth are twitching. He's looking around the room as if an exit is going to magically appear in the wall. I intended to pay her back, he says, but the arrogance is gone. It's replaced by a whimper. I had a plan. I was going to get a job at the warehouse and... Stop, I interject. I don't care about your plan. I care about the truth. You stood there 5 minutes ago and told me this was a gift. Now you're saying you intended to pay her back. If it was a gift, why would you need to pay it back? You can't even keep your defense straight for 10 minutes. You're stumbling over your own feet. I pick up a piece of paper. It's a letter from the church. I read it quickly. It's a letter from the pastor stating that Mr. Thorne has been asked to leave the volunteer program due to unexplained financial discrepancies in the youth fund. My eyes snap back to him. You've been busy, haven't you, Mr. Thorne? It wasn't just Mrs. Gable. You were dipping into the church till 2? That's not true. That's a misunderstanding, he shouts. Don't shout in my courtroom, I bark back. The pastor says there was a $500 shortfall in the fundraiser money you were handling. He says you lost the envelope. Does that sound familiar? Losing money seems to be your primary hobby. I didn't steal that money, he says, but his voice is trembling now. He's losing it. He's realizing that I haven't just looked at this case, I've looked at him. I've pulled back the curtain on his whole pathetic life. Whether you stole it or lost, it is irrelevant to me today, I say, my voice cold. What is relevant is your pattern of behavior. You find people who trust you, the elderly, the faithful, and you exploit that trust. You use their goodness as a weapon against them. And then you come in here and try to make Mrs. Gable look like she's confused or gift-giving her life savings away to a loser like you. Mrs. Gable lets out a sob. It's a small, heartbreaking sound. I look at her. Mrs. Gable, don't cry. He's not worth your tears. He's a small man. He's so small I can barely see him over the top of this bench. I turn back to Thorne. You're going to pay her back every cent, every single cent, but we're not done. I want to know about this business license you told her you bought. You told her you spent $400 on a city permits and a license. Show me the license. I don't have it with me, he says. Bird, call the city clerk's office. Give them his name and the name of this Thorne detailing business. Let's see if he's even visited the building. Thorne's knees actually buckle a little. He grabs the edge of the podium. Wait, he says. Wait. I might have been mistaken about the license. Mistaken or lying? I didn't get the license yet. I was waiting for the van. But you told her you had it. You used that as a reason to ask for more money. I'm leaning so far forward, I'm almost out of my chair. You lied to her to get the money. You lied to her about where the money went. You lied to her about the scam. And you lied to me about it being a gift. You're a pyramid of lies, Mr. Thorne. And I'm about to pull the bottom brick out. The defendant is shaking now, not with anger, but with the sudden, terrifying realization that he is trapped. There is no Mike. There is no Arizona seminar. There is only a trail of bank statements and text messages that lead straight to a jail cell if the DA decides to pick this up. I'm sorry, he whispers. Sorry? You're sorry you got caught, I snap. You're not sorry for what you did to this woman. You're not sorry that she can't afford her heating bill this winter because you wanted to drink bottle service at a lounge called The Alibi. You're only sorry because the Judge Judy show isn't going the way you practiced in the mirror. I look at him for a long beat. I want him to simmer in his own shame. I want the silence to eat at him. Bird, did you get the clerk on the line? I have them right here, Judge, Bird says, holding the phone. Ask them, I say, my eyes never leaving Thorne. Ask them if Marcus Thorne has ever applied for a business license in the last 5 years. Thorne's eyes go wide. He looks like he's about to faint. This is the moment. This is where the lie dies. He knows what they're going to say. He knows he never went near that office. He knows the game is over. Your Honor, he gasps, his voice breaking. Please, I'll tell you the truth. Oh, now you want to tell the truth? I fold my arms. I'm all ears, Mr. Thorne. But it better be the whole truth, or I'm sending this entire file to the district attorney's office for elder abuse and fraud before you can walk out that door. Start talking, and it better be good. He starts to crumble. I can see it in the way his shoulders slump and his knees finally give out, hitting the chair behind him with a dull thud. He's not the big shot from Las Vegas anymore. He's not the good boy from the church pews. He's just a caught rat in a very expensive trap. His hands are over his face, and he's making this low, keening sound that I find particularly annoying. Stop the waterworks, Mr. Thorne. I don't find them moving, and I certainly don't find them believable, I say, tapping my pen on the bench. Bird, tell the clerk we'll call them back. I think Mr. Thorne has finally decided to join us in the real world. Bird hangs up the phone. The courtroom is silent except for Thorne's heavy breathing. He looks up, his eyes red, his face blotchy. There was no van, he whispers. Louder, sir. I can't hear you over the sound of your own self-pity, I bark. There was no van, he shouts, and then he starts to sob. There was no business. I had some debts, some bad debts from before I moved here. People were calling me. They were threatening me. I thought I could use the money to pay them off, go to Vegas, double it on the tables, and give Eleanor her money back before she even knew it was gone. So you're a gambler, I say, my voice flat. You're a thief and a gambler. That's a lovely combination. It's like being a shark with a taste for blood and a compass that doesn't work. You took her money she worked decades for, and you put it on a color, on a number? I thought I could win, he cries out, as if that justifies the crime. I had a system. I've won before. I just needed one good night, and I could have given her 10,000 back. I wanted to help her too. Don't you dare. I point my finger at him, my voice like a razor. Don't you dare sit there and pretend your greed was an act of charity. You didn't want to help her. You wanted to help yourself to her bank account. You saw a woman who was lonely, a woman who wanted to believe the best in people, and you used that against her. That isn't a system, Mr. Thorne. That's a pathology. It's predatory behavior. Mrs. Gable is looking at him with a mix of horror and pity. That's the problem with good people. They feel sorry for the people who hurt them. I don't have that problem. I've seen 10,000 Marcus Thornes. They all have a story. They all have a system. They all meant to pay it back, but they never do. They just move on to the next victim. How much did you lose in Vegas, Mr. Thorne? The truth this time. If I find out you're lying about the amount, I'm doubling the aggravation. All of it, he chokes out. The 5,000 she gave me, plus the 200 for the bus, plus 300 of my own rent money. I came back with $12 in my pocket and a suitcase full of dirty clothes. And then you had the audacity, the unmitigated gall to go back to her and tell her you were scammed by a man named Mike? To keep the lie going for 3 more months while she waited for her investment to return? I was scared, he says, wiping his nose with his sleeve. I didn't want her to hate me. She was the only person who was nice to me in this city. I thought if I could just get a job, I'd pay her back $50 a week and she'd never have to know I was a failure. A failure is someone who tries and falls short. You're a fraud, I say. There's a big difference. A failure doesn't lie about a business license. A failure doesn't invent a private cellar in a parking lot. You crafted a narrative to keep her on the hook. You groomed her. You checked in on her. You fixed her faucet. You made her feel cared for. All so you could keep her quiet while you figured out your next move. I turn back to the papers. I'm looking at the dates again. And even while you were scared and feeling bad, you were still taking her to lunch. Let me guess, she paid for those too? Mrs. Gable nods slowly. He said his card was frozen because of the business expenses. I paid for his meals for the last 2 months. I didn't want him to go hungry. I feel a heat rising in my chest. This is the part that gets me, the sheer cold-blooded calculation of it. You let this woman, who you just admitted was the only person nice to you, buy your sandwiches while you knew you'd blown her savings on a craps table in Nevada? You're not just a criminal, Thorne. You're a degenerate. You have no moral compass. You have no shame. I do have shame, he wails. That's why I'm crying. I hate myself for this. No, you hate that you're on television and I'm ripping your mask off. I snap. If I had told you I believed your gift story, you'd be walking out of here with a smirk on your face, looking for the next grandmother to swindle. You're crying because you're trapped. You're crying because the repayment text is in my hand and your Mike story is in the trash. I lean back, looking at him. He's a pathetic sight. But I've learned one thing in all my years on the bench. Pathetic people are often the most dangerous because they think their suffering entitles them to cause suffering in others. Let's talk about the church, I say. The $500. Did you gamble that too? He nods, his head hanging low. Yes. I was supposed to deposit it on Monday. I went to the local casino on Sunday night thinking I could turn it into 1,000. I lost it in 20 minutes. And you lied to the pastor. You told him you lost the envelope. Yes. Did you hear that, Mrs. Gable? I ask, my voice turning gentle. He didn't just do it to you. He did it to his community. He did it to his God. He's a professional liar. He doesn't have a guilty conscience. He has a fear of consequences. There's a difference. I look at Thorne. You realize that what you've admitted to is a series of felonies, don't you? Obtaining money under false pretenses, grand larceny, elder financial abuse. You're standing there admitting to crimes that carry prison time. He starts to shake again, more violently this time. Please, Judge, don't send me to jail. I'll pay her back. I'll work 3 jobs. I'll give her every penny. You don't have 3 jobs. You don't even have 1 job. You're a drifter with a gambling habit and a suit that's worth more than your bank account, I say. I look at Mrs. Gable. Mrs. Gable, do you want him arrested? I can have Bird call the bailiff right now, and we can start the process. The room goes still. This is the moment where the victim gets her power back. Mrs. Gable looks at Thorne. She looks at him for a long time. The silence is deafening. Thorne is looking at her, pleading with his eyes, his mouth trembling. He's a dog waiting for a bone, or in this case, a reprieve. Mrs. Gable takes a deep breath. She looks at me, and her eyes are clear. No, Judge, I don't want him in jail. That won't get my money back, and it won't fix his soul. I just want him to never do this to anyone else. I want him to understand that he didn't just take my money. He took my peace of mind. I used to feel safe in my church. Now I look at every young man who offers to help me, and I wonder what he's really after. He stole my trust, and that's worth a lot more than $5,000. You're a better woman than I am, Mrs. Gable, I say, and I mean it. Because if it were me, I'd want him in a cage, but it's your case. However, I am going to make sure he pays not just the money, but the price of his reputation. I turn to Thorne. I am awarding the plaintiff $5,000. That is the maximum I can give. If I could give her 10, I would. If I could give her 20 for the pain and suffering you've caused her, I'd do that too. But you are going to pay this judgment, and I am going to order you to provide proof of employment to this court every month until it is satisfied. If you miss a payment, if you go back to a casino, if I hear your name in connection with another discrepancy, I will personally make sure the DA has every transcript, every bank record, and every confession you made today. I understand, he mumbles. I don't think you do, I say. I don't think you realize how close you are to the edge of a very dark hole. You've spent your life thinking you could charm your way out of the truth. Today, the charm ran out. Today, you met the truth, and it's wearing a black robe. I look at the clock. I'm not done with him yet. I want to dig into the Arizona seminar lie. I want to know exactly how many people he's pulled this on. Because a guy like this doesn't start with $5,000. He starts small. He starts with $20 from a neighbor. He starts with a lost $5 bill at the grocery store. Who else, Mr. Thorne, I ask, my voice dropping to a whisper. Who else have you taken money from? Don't lie to me. If I find out tomorrow that there's a Mrs. Higgins or a Mr. Miller out there, I'm coming for you. He looks like he's about to break again. The weight of his own history is pressing down on him. He's realizing that this isn't just one case. It's the end of his career as a con man. There was a woman in my old apartment building. He says, his voice barely audible. I told her I could fix her car. I took $300 for parts, and I never went back. And a guy at the gym, $200 for a supplement business. You're a one-man crime wave. I say, disgusted. Bird, I want a list. I want every name he can remember. We're going to see how much of this judgment we can actually get back to these people. This isn't just a trial anymore. It's a liquidation. Thorne is weeping now, his head on the podium. He's completely broken. The guilty conscience isn't a conscience at all. It's the sheer terror of being seen for exactly what he is. He's a hollow man. I look at Mrs. Gable. We're going to get you your money, Mrs. Gable, one way or another. But more importantly, we've put this animal in the light. He can't hide in the shadows of the church pews anymore. I'm just getting started. We have 2,000 more words of this man's history to uncover. And I'm going to make sure every single lie is dragged out into the sun. Sit up, Mr. Thorne. We're going to go through your phone, contact by contact, and you're going to tell me exactly who Auntie M is and why she sent you a loan for $500 last Tuesday. Bird, bring me that phone, I say, stretching my hand out. Thorne looks like I've asked for his kidney, but he hands it over. He doesn't have a choice. I don't care about his privacy. When you use your phone to facilitate a fraud, you've turned it into a piece of evidence. I scroll through his messages with the speed of a woman who has no time to waste on LOLs and emojis. I find Auntie M immediately. I tap on the thread. My eyes narrow as I read. Mr. Thorne, who is Margaret Thorne? She's my great aunt, he says, his voice small. And where does Margaret live? She's in an assisted living facility in Ohio. An assisted living facility. So another senior citizen, I say, looking at the screen. On Tuesday, just 4 days ago, you sent her a message. You told her you were short on your medical insurance premium and that you were worried you'd lose coverage for your heart condition. Do you have a heart condition, Mr. Thorne? He hesitates. He looks at Bird. Bird just stares back with that look that says, don't look at me, pal. I just work here. I have palpitations sometimes, Thorne says. Palpitations? I get palpitations when I see the bill for my lace collars, but I don't call my 86-year-old aunt and tell her I'm dying to get $500, I shout. You don't have a heart condition. You have a I want to go back to the casino condition. And this poor woman, Margaret, sent you $500 from her limited funds because she thinks her great-nephew is in medical distress. You're not just a predator, Thorne. You're a bottom feeder. You're the thing that eats the trash at the bottom of the ocean. I hand the phone back to Bird. Bird, make a note of Margaret Thorne's contact info. We're going to find out how to get that $500 back to her, too. You can't do that, Thorne says, a spark of his former arrogance flickering for a second. That's a private matter. In my courtroom, nothing is private when it smells like a crime. I snap. You're lucky I'm not wearing a badge and a gun, because you'd be in handcuffs before you could say double down. Now, let's talk about the gym guy. You mentioned a supplement business. What was the name of that fake company? It wasn't fake, he mutters. It was called Thorne Vitality. I was going to sell organic pre-workouts. Organic pre-workouts? I repeat, the sarcasm dripping off my tongue like acid. And let me guess, you needed seed money for the initial shipment that never arrived because Mike stole it in another parking lot? He doesn't answer. He doesn't have to. The pattern is so predictable, it's boring. He finds a niche, he creates a story, he takes the cash, and he spends it on himself. It's a classic confidence man routine, but he's not very confident, and he's certainly no man. I turn my attention back to the bank records. I'm looking for the Vegas dates again. Mr. Thorne, you flew to Las Vegas on the 12th. You stayed at the Flamingo. I see a charge here for 2 people. Who went with you? He looks at the floor. A friend. A friend. Does this friend have a name, or is it just another Mike? Her name is Tiffany, he says. Tiffany. And did Tiffany know that her romantic getaway was being funded by Eleanor Gable's savings and Margaret Thorne's heart surgery money? She thought I'd won it, he says. I told her I had a big week at work. A big week at work? I laugh. It's a short, sharp bark of a laugh. You haven't worked a legitimate job in 18 months. I see your tax returns from last year. You reported 0 income. 0. So how did you pay your rent before you met Mrs. Gable? I had some savings. He lies. No, you didn't. I see your opening balance from January. You had $14.62. You were living off of people like Mrs. Gable. You're a professional house guest, a professional helper, a professional leech. I look at Mrs. Gable. She's staring at him, and for the first time, she looks angry. He told me he was a veteran, she says suddenly. The room goes ice cold. I stop flipping pages. I look at Thorne. My voice is very, very quiet now. Are you a veteran, Mr. Thorne? He looks like he wants to melt into the floor. He doesn't say a word. Answer me, I roar. Are you a veteran of the United States Armed Forces? I went to basic training, he whispers. And I was discharged. Why? Medical reasons. What medical reasons? Was it the palpitations you used to scam your aunt? It was an administrative discharge, he admits. That's a fancy way of saying they kicked you out before you even started because you couldn't follow the rules or you lied on your paperwork, I say. I've seen this before. Guys who want the respect of the uniform without the sacrifice of the service. Mrs. Gable, did he tell you he served overseas? He said he was in Afghanistan, she says, her voice trembling with rage. My husband died in Vietnam, Judge. I have his flag on my mantle. When Marcus told me he was a veteran, I felt like I had to help him. I thought he was a hero who had fallen on hard times. I feel a surge of pure, unadulterated disgust. I've heard a lot of lies in this chair. I've heard people lie about car accidents, about cheating spouses, about dog bites. But lying about military service to a Gold Star widow to steal her money, that's a special kind of evil. That's a level of depravity that requires a different kind of justice. You're a coward, Thorne, I say, my voice steady but filled with loathing. You're a pathetic, sniveling coward. You use the memory of men who actually died for this country to line your pockets and go to a nightclub in Vegas. You're not just a thief. You're a disgrace to that suit. And you're a disgrace to the people who actually wear the uniform you pretended to own. Thorne is shaking his head, crying again, but I don't care. I'm not just awarding the $5,000, Mrs. Gable. I am going to find every legal avenue to make sure this man's name is associated with this fraud in every public record I can reach. Bird, I want the transcript of this hearing sent to the local Veterans Affairs office and the church he was volunteering at. I want it sent to his aunt's facility in Ohio. I want the light to follow him wherever he goes. Please, Judge, Thorne begs, I'll give it all back. Just don't ruin my life. You ruined your own life the moment you decided that a 74-year-old woman was a mark. I slam my hand down. You think you're the victim here? You think your life is more important than the security and peace of mind of this woman? You're a slow learner, Mr. Thorne, very slow. But today, the lesson is over. I pick up my gavel. I'm ready to end this, but I want one more thing. I want him to look at her. Mr. Thorne, look at Mrs. Gable. Look at her. He slowly turns his head. Mrs. Gable is standing tall now. She's not shaking anymore. She's found her strength. Say it, I command. Say, I stole your money and I lied about my service. Say it out loud so the whole world can hear it. He chokes on the words, I stole your money. I'm sorry. And the rest, I lied about being a veteran. There it is, I say, leaning back. The truth. It's a bitter pill, isn't it? It doesn't taste like bottle service in Vegas lights, does it? It tastes like the cheap, dirty reality of who you are. I turn to the cameras, then back to the parties. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000 plus costs. Mr. Thorne, if I ever see you in a courtroom again, you'd better be wearing orange. We're done here. I slam the gavel down. The sound is final. It's the sound of a lie being crushed. As I stand up to leave, I see Thorne collapse back into his chair, a broken man. Mrs. Gable walks out with her head held high. She didn't just get a judgment. She got her dignity back. I walk out of the room, my robe billowing behind me. Bird follows. I don't look back. I've got another case in 10 minutes, and I'm sure it'll be another person trying to tell me it's raining while they're standing there with a garden hose.